Lovely viewers, what you're about to hear might just be the most touching and unexpected moment in the Korean entertainment world this year. So settle in, grab a drink, and get ready for an emotional, interactive ride filled with whispers of reconciliation, new beginnings, and the kind of twist only real life can deliver. Because just moments ago, yes, just moments ago, Song Joong-ki was spotted doing something that no one saw coming. Something that has left the entire industry, the fans, and the media absolutely speechless. Song Joong-ki was seen visiting none other than Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo's newborn baby. Yes, you heard that right. Pause for a moment. Let that sink in. Because this is not just a story, it's history in the making. How did it all start? What led to this powerful and deeply emotional visit? What was the atmosphere like when he arrived? What were Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo's reactions? And above all, what does this say about the current dynamics between these three colossal figures in Korean entertainment? Lovely viewers, let's go on this journey together, step by step. It all began early this morning, when several local news outlets and fan pages began buzzing with unusual activity in the secluded high-security neighborhood where Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo now reside with their newborn. Paparazzi cameras, despite the high privacy, managed to capture a vehicle pulling up slowly outside the couple's home. But this wasn't just any car. It was the very same sleek, black Genesis GV80 that Song Joong-ki has been frequently seen in during his quiet drives around Seoul. The moment he stepped out, camera shutters went wild. But unlike previous public appearances, Song Joong-ki didn't seem to mind. In fact, for the first time in a long while, he had a soft smile on his face. He was dressed casually, yet carefully. A white shirt, navy slacks, and a navy baseball cap pulled slightly downward. In his hand, a small bouquet of baby's breath and hydrangeas. Yes, flowers. Gentle, subtle, and symbolic. And in the other, a small gift bag wrapped in pale pink, with what looked like delicate lace peeking out from inside. No one could believe it. Was this really happening? Could this be real? He walked calmly, gracefully, almost meditatively towards the gate. He paused, looked up at the home and waited. The security guard recognized him. There was no hesitation, no call for confirmation, just a silent nod and the doors opened. That's when the internet erupted. Lovely viewers, let's pause for a second. Can we just acknowledge how monumental this moment is? This wasn't just about a man visiting a child. This was a visit heavy with past love, pain, healing, and perhaps forgiveness. Back inside the home, Song Hye Kyo, who had been nursing the baby with Lee Min-ho by her side, was said to be visibly surprised, even stunned. According to an insider, someone very close to the couple who chose to remain anonymous, she stood still for several seconds, eyes wide, as she heard from the intercom that Joong-ki had arrived. "Are you sure?" she reportedly asked the guard, who nodded. Lee Min-ho, always calm and composed, simply said, "It's your call." And in that instant, Song Hye Kyo chose compassion. The door opened. Song Joong-ki entered, stepping slowly and with purpose, each movement echoing with unspoken emotion. The room was said to be silent. Not a word spoken. Not a breath wasted. Then he saw her, Song Hye Kyo, holding the little one wrapped in a soft cream blanket, with Lee Min-ho gently supporting her from behind. A sight that could melt even the hardest heart. Joong-ki's face changed. Gone was the mask of media training and stoic expression. In its place was raw emotion. His eyes glistening, his breath trembling. He approached, and in what onlookers described as one of the most graceful gestures ever seen, he bowed, deeply, sincerely, to both of them, and then he spoke. "Congratulations," he said softly. "I heard. And I just wanted to come in peace. To meet the little angel." Song Hye Kyo didn't speak for a few seconds. But then, with tears silently streaming down her face, she nodded. Lee Min-ho. He didn't flinch. He placed his hand gently on Joong-ki's shoulder and said, "Come in." Lovely viewers, are you feeling this? Because this is beyond any drama script. This is real. Emotional. This is about three human beings navigating a complicated past, and still choosing grace. Joong Ki sat down carefully, as the baby lay resting peacefully in a white bassinet beside the couch. He didn't rush. He didn't even try to hold the baby at first. He just looked, eyes wide with awe. The kind of awe that makes you reflect on your own life, your own past, and your own choices. He asked softly, "What's their name?" Lee Min-ho smiled. And Hye Kyo, with her voice still slightly shaken, said, "Hone. It means grace and kindness." Joong Ki paused. "Grace," he repeated. "It suits her." And then, slowly, with a permission only a mother can give, Hye Kyo gestured gently for him to come closer. He leaned in. He looked. And in that moment he smiled. A real smile. Rare smile. The kind of smile that speaks of healing, of journeys ending and new ones beginning. He gently reached out, not to hold, but just to brush the tiniest part of Hone's blanket. Touch of acknowledgement. Touch of blessing. The three of them, former lovers, present parents, and new partners, shared a silence that words could never fill. But the silence wasn't awkward. The room was filled with a strange warmth. The kind of warmth you can't describe with mere words. It was as though time itself had paused to allow healing to enter the space. No camera, no flashing lights, just three souls navigating something very human. Pain, growth, and the overwhelming power of new life. Joong Ki, still seated beside the bassinet, remained in quiet reverence. The baby stirred slightly, her tiny hands curling into fists, her little chest rising and falling with soft, rhythmic breaths. Joong Ki watched her with eyes that seemed to reflect every memory, every wound, and every hope he had ever carried. It was clear. This wasn't just a casual visit. This was a reckoning, a gentle reckoning. And then something remarkable happened. Lee Min-ho, always measured and calm, stepped forward and sat beside him. Two of Korea's most iconic men, once on completely opposite ends of a complex love triangle, now sitting side by side in harmony, watching over the same child. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. In fact, it might be one of the most powerful public moments never meant to be public. And yet, through a few whispers and quiet witnesses, the story is making its way into the hearts of millions. Joong Ki turned to Lee Min-ho and said something that no one expected. Something that would send a ripple through social media hours later when an anonymous source leaked the conversation. "She chose well," Joong Ki said quietly. "I see the peace in her eyes now. The kind of peace I couldn't give her. There was no malice, no bitterness, just honesty. Raw, unfiltered honesty." And Lee Min-ho, being the man of humility and strength that he is, simply nodded. He didn't respond with pride or smugness. Instead, he said, "We all carry different kinds of love. Maybe yours helped her get here." Lovely viewers, isn't that the most emotionally mature, noble, and moving exchange you've ever heard? Let's breathe that in for a moment. Two men, no longer rivals, no longer distant, no longer defined by competition, but by empathy, understanding, and a shared respect for the woman they both loved in different seasons of life. Meanwhile, Hye Kyo had quietly excused herself to another room. But not because she wanted to avoid the moment. Quite the opposite. She needed to collect herself. Because even for someone as elegant and strong as her, the emotional gravity of the moment was enormous. Inside the nursery, she stood silently by the window, looking out at the garden Lee Min-ho had planted just weeks before Hone was born. It was filled with peonies, her favorite flower. And now, with Joong Ki's visit, that garden seemed to bloom just a little more. She whispered to herself, maybe this is how it was always meant to be. Outside the nursery, Joong Ki gently stood and took a few quiet steps toward the hallway, as if instinctively knowing where she might be. He didn't knock, didn't intrude. He just stood there, just within earshot. And then he spoke. "Hye Kyo, thank you. For allowing me this moment. For trusting me enough to let me see her." There was a long silence. And then, from within the room, her soft voice replied, "I never stopped wishing you peace, Joong Ki. Even when it was hard." Years. Real tears. The kind that come from a decade of memories, misunderstandings, broken promises, and lessons learned. This wasn't about reigniting something old. This wasn't about stirring the past. This was about honoring it, acknowledging it, and letting it rest. When she finally stepped back into the living room, Lee Min-ho had moved to the kitchen to prepare tea, giving them a moment, perhaps the final one they didn't know they needed. Joong turned to her and said, "She looks like you." But her eyes, they're his. She smiled faintly. "Yes, but she has your calm. I felt it the moment she was born." There it was again. That gentle blend of the past and the present. That delicate thread that connected them all. Not romantically anymore, but spiritually, respectfully. Then, to everyone's surprise, Joong reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, silver rattle. Delicate, engraved with tiny stars and moons. "I had this made," he said. "Not for the media. Not for show. Just for her. I hope she grows up knowing she's deeply loved. By many." Hye Kyo took it in her hands, and for a moment the past melted away. There was no divorce, no scandal, no headlines. Just two people once in love, now at peace, holding a gift for a new life that symbolized healing. When Lee Min-ho returned, he found them both seated quietly, the tension gone, the mood warm. He smiled. "You two okay?" he asked gently. Joong looked up and nodded. "Better than I expected. Thank you, Min-ho, for everything." And with that, the visit began to wind down. Joong stood up, bowed once more, and walked slowly toward the door. But just before stepping out, he turned. "Take care of her," he said, not as a warning but as a prayer. "Both of them." And Lee Min-ho, ever the man of quiet assurance, responded, "Always." Lovely viewers, isn't this the kind of interaction that reminds us all of what's truly important? Not fame, not rumors, not grudges, but growth, grace, and above all, forgiveness. As Joong walked away from that home, something in him had changed. Reporters waiting at the end of the street noted a certain lightness in his step, a peace that hadn't been there in years. He didn't rush to his car. He walked slowly, as though savoring the moment. He looked up at the sky. And then he did something that fans haven't seen in years. He smiled to the cameras. Not a fake smile. Not a forced one. But a genuine, soft, healing smile. Hours later, his agency released a simple statement. Mr. Song Joong visited longtime friends Lee Min-ho and Hye Kyo to congratulate them on the birth of their daughter. The visit was private, heartfelt, and a gesture of peace and respect. We ask that the public allow this moment to remain as sincere as it was meant to be. And what about Hye Kyo? She posted a single photo on her Instagram story later that night. Just a picture of the silver rattle, resting gently on Haeun's blanket, with 3 emojis. Cherry blossom, dove, crescent moon. Fans knew. And they responded with love, with gratitude, with an outpouring of support that flooded social media with hashtags like #HealingBegins, #SongJoongVisita, #PeaceOverPain, Lee Min-ho Hye Kyo Forever. Lovely viewers, we're far from done. This is just a taste of the emotion, the history, the reconciliation, and the future that this powerful moment has triggered.